So for this video, we're going to look at homework problem 29. I need to give you a little bit more background because this changes to what we call measures of position. Where does something, also called measures of relative standing, where is something in line? So where is a particular data value in relation to the rest of the data values? So from summary stats, we get the 5-number summary, which is the minimum, Q1, Q2, Q3, and the maximum. We can easily find this with Statcrunch. The Q stands for quartile. Think 4 quarters in a dollar. So it divides the data up into 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. So Q1 is the symbol for the value that separated the bottom 25% of the data values from the top 75%. Q2 represents the median, not the mean. Remember that when we're dealing with 5-number summaries, we use the median for our measure of center. That separates the bottom 50% of the data from the top 50%, and so on. If we were using percentiles, Q1 is the same as P25, or the 25th percentile. The 5-number summary is used to construct a box plot or modified box plot. They're sometimes called box and whisker plots. And the modified box plot locates outliers represented by a dot. We're going to see how this works in a few minutes. The image of the box plot below makes this visual connection. So if you look at it, there's minimum. Well, this shows a different minimum, and I didn't realize it till just now, but I'll be able to explain this when we pull up a screen in a few minutes. This is the minimum fence, so any outliers would be out there. This is not the minimum data value. This is something different. But this is how you would find it. Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR. And any value that's below that would be out here. It's going to be easier to show that in the problem in a few minutes. Over here, we see Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. And you see the outliers by these little dots here. The interquartile range is this area between Q1 and Q3. So again, this is the 25th percentile, 75th percentile. And there's actually a minimum value that's not shown on this drawing and a maximum value. But anyway, which would actually, in this case, this would be the minimum value, this outlier. And this outlier over here to the right would be the maximum. So wherever they're located. So the stats, summary stats, graph, box plot functions, Statcrunch provide a quick and efficient way to put these ideas to work. So let's see what that looks like in a problem. So here's problem 29. And they give us some data. So they want me to find the quartiles, the interquartile range, and the outliers. So we know I'm going to load my data in. When I load my data in, I'm going to get the summary stats, and I'm going to locate that my data is in column 1, and then I'm going to click compute, get my summary stats, which I know that's a little bit hard to see here. But if when I show it with Statcrunch in just a minute, it'll make more sense. So Q1 is 58. There it is right there. And there is 58. The median, which is right here, is 60. And that's 60. So we've answered that question. Q3, 65. That's right here. We've answered that question. Now, the next question to ask is how to find the interquartile range. Well, Q3, 65 minus 58 is 7. So IQR equals 7. So now how do we identify outliers? Well, what I'm showing in this next paragraph, there's my punctuation's terrible. My capitalization. We're going to use we use the IQR, Q3 minus Q1, and then we're going to use the 1.5 times IQR. So let's see how this all gets put together. So 7 is my IQR. We already know that from right here. We now set our boundaries or fences to determine any outliers. We start by multiplying the IQR by 1.5. In this case, 1.5 times 7 equals 10.5. The lower boundary or fence is Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So in our case, this is 58 minus 10.5 that we already calculated right here. 47.5. Well, if we look at our data, you'll notice that 54 is the lowest. So we do not have a low side outlier. Now we're going to find the upper boundary. So Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Well, this is 65. We got that right here. Plus 10.5 again, and that equals 75.5. So any value above 75.5 would be considered an outlier. When we look at the data, look at this. 83 right here is above 75.5. All right, so this is our outlier. And you notice that is the correct answer here in 83. So we don't have a low side outlier, but we do have a high side outlier. Now, that's how you use the formula, do it by hand. But there's a function in Statcrunch that does this a little bit easier for us. And when I walk us through the whole problem in just a minute, I'm going to show you that. When I go to the data, I can go to the graph function, boxplot. And this dialog box that you're seeing in this image will come up. Now, I will have to put a check in this box right here, draw boxes horizontally. And of course, I got to locate that my data is in the variable 1 column. And when I hit this box plot, all the way out here, you'll see this little dot. That dot represents an outlier. And if I hover over it, it's going to tell me it's 83. And if I click on it, it highlights that data value in my data values over here. So this is another way to find the box plot. Y'all may find that easier. To find the outlier. So let's go ahead and do this problem from the beginning on Statcrunch and see how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the question, which is here. I don't know why that's happening, but why don't we do this so we can see it a little better. Okay, so I'm going to load the data. And I'm going to pull it over. I know I'm going to have to sort this anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to sort my table ascending. Although if I'm using the boxplot method to find the outlier, I wouldn't have had to. Stat, summary stats, columns, variable 1, click compute. And sure enough, there is my first quartile, Q1 is 58. My median right here is 60. My third quartile, Q3, is 65. I know that I can take 65 and subtract the 58 and I get 7, but believe it or not, I can find the IQR if necessary. Let's suppose I had messier data. I can click in here, click IQR, click compute, and sure enough, there's that 7 again. So I can actually get the IQR if I had a really large data set with really messy numbers. I can get it from within Statcrunch. So now we're ready to find our outliers. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. So now to find the outlier, what am I going to do? Graph, boxplot. Variable 1 is where the data is. I want my boxes horizontally. Notice the check's already in the fence to identify outliers. When I click compute, there's the image you've already seen. And watch what happens. If I hover over this, I've got to hit it just right. Notice it shows me that it's 83. And if I click on that, sorry, I'm having trouble. It highlights that in the data set where the outlier is located. So this completes this question. I hope you hope this helps, and hope this also helps you understand measures of position or relative standing. Good luck.